this interesting session, which is a little bit new in this EYCA conference. We didn't have so far, at least as far as I know, such sessions. I would like to invite our former president to join me here on the stage. But I'm also inviting the current president to join us.
Is it possible for me?
Yes.
Keep it civilized.
Surprise, I didn't.
You see on the email, yes, you are invited. It's really a pleasure to have you all here today with us. I think this is really a nice occasion that we can celebrate 30 years of European Youth Card with people who were there, at least some of them, when the card as European card started its road. I would like briefly to introduce once more, because there are still new people, so I would just like to introduce Marcus Little, who is first in the role of the president, which we have here at least, not first in the overall role as far as I know. Yes, we have Patrick McManaman, who is coming as a second after Marcus.
Keep the applause down.
We have Volkan Šik, who is third in the row, and then finally current president, still, Jacques Leikonen, who is our fourth in the row president. As you can see, all very handsome men we had here 30 years ago.
Yeah, 30 years ago.
I'm just imagining how they look like 30 years ago.
No.
We're nothing.
It was really nice to see. So 4 men in the row, but this conference will, I hope at least, give us first women in the row. So let's see what happened 30 years ago. What was Marcus as the one who was there when this famous protocol was signed? What was your first impression, your main impression, highlight of this event which you could share with us?
In the beginning, we're all in short trousers, healthy, young. My first impression was, shit. I would like to do a little thing on the Lisbon Protocol, which I think was the most memorable event I was ever at. So I think what I'm trying to do is give you a brief description of it. First, before I start, all those who weren't born by then, please stand up. When you weren't born 30 years ago.
Who is younger than
Yeah, younger than 30. That's easy. Yeah. It's half the room, Marcus.
Okay, you can all leave.
No, they have to stay here.
This little episode we're going to do now is for you. A little bit of history on that particular event. I'm very lucky that I've been joined by my backup group. There's Italian tenors, 5 hours actually.
It's EYCA's Got Talent.
So here we go. Little rehearsal. Any other singers in the room?
You didn't want us to sing it, you just wanted us to hum it.
You should say what? You should say.
It was better in rehearsal, trust me. You want to do that again?
The Italian tenor, no backshot, just when I'm playing. Okay? Right. Off we go. Gently. On 3 masted schooner, decked in flags, lies at anchor in sunny Lisbon harbour. Our decks full of lively delegations of young people and staff from the 6 founding countries. Then a royal launch carrying the Portuguese President Silva pulls alongside, white ensigns fluttering and mascaros in salute position. It was much more exciting than that house. On deck, young people and dignitaries mingle, steady music plays, and cocktails are shared. And then, to the fanfare, the ceremonial signing of the Lisbon Protocol takes place. First the Netherlands, and then Belgium, Spain, France, Scotland, and the hosts, Portugal, sign the protocol. A totally memorable and historic event. The launch of the EYCA ideal, our shared dream, had begun. That was the I just wanted to say that now, here in beautiful Belgrade, 30 years later, EYCA is still an exciting, inspiring, and creative organization. I was utterly impressed with the feedback this morning. It was marvelous. We think, we older chaps, it's in safe hands. I look forward to seeing what you do in the next 30 years. Good luck.
We are not done yet, you know. And that is how the story begins, but how the story continues. But could you tell us a little bit of your impression of beginnings of the EYCA? What was your highlight?
Oh, my highlight.
Yes. Next to the artist, he's always a highlight.
Yeah, we could be here for some time. But like Marcus, very, very impressed by what I've heard already this morning. When I was young, in 1985, Marcus asked me to go to Paris because he had read in a newspaper something about Carte Jeune being launched in Paris in 1985 as part of International Youth Year. So he sent me to Paris, and I slept on the sofa of John Alexander, who was then the EYCA General Secretary. So I'm really, really, really pleased to be here in the Hyatt Regency Hotel because it does demonstrate that the ethos and the values of youth mobility does get better. So I've gone from a sofa with John Alexander in Paris to the Hyatt Regency. It's taken more than 30 years, but there you go. But that was significant for me. It was significant. It was the first time I travelled abroad on my own. I went to Paris to study the youth card and learned the lessons there. I've since worked for youth cards in England, Wales and Hungary, and currently reside in Budapest, where I've been for the last 12 years, where I operated and opened a Budapest Scottish bar and restaurant for the last 11 years. So I then became a discount provider. So I went from operating youth cars to a discount provider. But what I've discovered more in the bar business is that the bar has become more of a youth information point. Yes, we do get card holders coming in to claim their 10% miserable discount on food and all the rest of it. But we spend more time talking to the card holders about what to do in Budapest as a young person. So the Caledonia bar in Budapest is really a youth information point as much as anything else. The thing that's really I've taken from it is the friendships, and I know the people here for the first time will develop friendships over the next 20, 30 years and share ideas with each other. That's the most important thing, to keep sharing, keep developing, and keep being creative.
Thank you very much. Well, in the role of inspiring Scottish president, then we had one Austrian president joining the association and creating the atmosphere. Tell us a little bit about what were your highlights in these beginnings, at least. Not only as the president, but also before that.
yeah, before that, 1987, I was not yet present, but I was first contact with the idea of the European Youth Card or instrument of the European Youth Card was already in the year 1985, so it was the International Youth Week. I just started working for my regional government in Austria and Salzburg to develop youth work in my region. And there we got the idea and the impression we should do something for a youth card in Austria. So we started doing the business with youth card in Austria around 1987, 88. I think the first conference I joined should have been in 1991. I think it was Portugal. That was my first conference where I participated. Yeah, and then further developing, being a board member somewhere at the end of the 90s, and then from 2003 until 2011, I was the president of this wonderful organization. So I was president for 8 years, which was quite a long period, being president for such a long time, the European Youth Card Association. It was a challenging time, it was a difficult time. It was the time of economic crisis at the end, 2008, yeah. So it was also economically difficult for some of our organizations in EYCA. It was also a time when EYCA was quite, let's say, had organizations which were really strong, economically strong, and others who were just starting to develop a card. Euro Under 26 was the brand at the time. Most of you might have heard about it, but maybe some of you don't know anything about Euro Under 26 anymore. Because I think the real good thing at the time when I was president and with the board I could work together was that we worked on the logo and we developed the European Youth Card Association's logo. EYCA, as our common friend, was developed during these years. And it was clear that this brand should show the direction, where we want to go. We want to be closer to Europe, we want to open Europe for the young people, we want to tell them a story about it, of a common Europe, being together in Europe, living together in Europe, being friendly to each other, traveling around, getting friends everywhere around. And that was also a little bit my feeling in the association. It is, of course, a matter of fact, and when you start together 1987, 6 organizations, 6 nations coming together, starting with the card, that this creates a kind of unique family feeling. And obviously I was not part of the family because I came later. So I came from another family. Right? But, and this is really I would say the unique thing in EYCA, even being not part of the family, you are accepted to contribute, to develop your own ideas, to develop an organization further. So I think this openness of EYCA to integrate people from various countries with various ideas, I think that's the strength of EYCA, and I do hope that this will continue in the future. I think EYCA should be an open organization of people coming from various areas, various ideas, and working together. The only common thing should be, let's work together on a European development, on a Europe where young people have a chance to live, to have a good life, to support them, to support the other ones, and staying together and working together. So open organization, that's for me one of the most important things.
Thank you very much. I would say that we have a lot of diversity here and we all work together, and I think it will continue like that. But I would also like to hear a little bit from current president, who is there also almost from the beginning, I think. Almost. How EYCA grew up, how enlarged, how that enlargement process, not of the European Union, of European Youth Card Association was going on.
Well, before going to that, I might also say a few words about how I joined the family. It was in 1989. I was a young, untouched boy,
There was a great taxi driver, so
And I was just hired to start the youth card in Finland. So it was in 1989, and I went to my first EYCA meeting, which was in Amsterdam, May '89. And I was very nervous. I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anything. And I went to check in the hotel, and I happened to meet two persons when I was checking into the hotel. And guess who these two gentlemen were? And
Changed your life forever.
and they say, "Come on, let's go and have a beer together." And my life has been downhill ever since. No, but seriously, this is what I've said before. We went to have a beer, and after half an hour, I had the feeling that I have known them for all my life. So this is very typical to EYCA that, it's a very friendly association, and I can still say that some of my best friends who are now out of EYCA, I still meet them regularly every year. And so it's really like a bunch of friends in addition to being a very professional organization. About how EYCA grew, when I was in my first General Assembly, there was maybe 20 people around the table. Very informal. You could, if you wanted to join EYCA, you just informed the organizer and welcome to, we're happy to have you in, and no rules, no regulation. You could just join in like that. And of course, the Council of Europe had also a big part in it, like they were promoting, organizing seminars with different countries, and so this is how in many countries the youth ministers of the Council of Europe, they had signed a document, a recommendation that there should be a youth card in every country. So for instance, in Finland, our minister had signed this document, and so he gave the job to I was working for the National Youth Council of Finland, so he gave the job to the youth organizations to please develop the youth card. And this is how it happened in many countries, with the initiative of the Council of Europe, the governments took responsibility and appointed some organization in their country. And so I mean, in the 90s we were growing quite fast, I can't remember the figures, but at the end of 90s we still had a lot of countries. And of course the big change was then, let's say in mid 90s, because the barriers in Europe had fallen down at the end of 80s, and little by little also the former Central and Eastern Europe started to join in, of course with the leadership of Poland, who came, I think, 94 or 95, Poland joined us as the first Eastern European country, and then quite rapidly we started to get the whole Eastern Europe within us. So that was like a really quick growth at the end of 90s.
I just wanted to ask Marcus, as president back then, how did it look like when you had an association who was growing really fast and you had a lot of new members? What was the biggest challenge? Håkan said that the economic crisis in 2000 was something which was really challenging from the perspective of members for the association. But what was, back then, what was real challenge in the association for developing youth card?
For me, there were three. There was three challenges. Three challenges. One was finance, the second one was finance, and the third one was finance. I personally had a problem because the interpreters couldn't understand my Scottish accent. That didn't help much.
Not just them.
Always the Austrians. I think the point to me at that time was less to do with problems of enlarging, it was to do with personalities who would give themselves to do the European side, because we were all from a national, and we would come in and we'd be European for the conference, then we'd go home and stop being European. So it was a way of making that develop. And I was looking at some of the notes from way back, and I thought it's time for us to begin to single out some of the heroes of that time. And people here will never know this, but there's a guy called Stéphane Delot. Remember that? Stéphane Delot was in charge of the French card way back. He's now, I think, mayor of Bordeaux. Anyway, Stéphane Delot was the guy who was instrumental in setting up the Council of Europe Party Agreement. That made a heck of a difference in our credibility and our contacts and how we could actually work outside the EC. And the growth was, I think growth was such a problem. I think it was helpful. I remember when Spain came in with 1 million cardholders. That was a massive change for us. There's a guy called Pep. Anybody know what Pep's second name was? What?
No.
Oh, it's not. Lots of Peps in Spain. He was a Pep.
And the same Pep who used to be the president of EYCA.
Anyway, he was again a superb character who pushed things forward. I think the third bit to me was when we opened up the office. Pardon?
Hello?
There's always some peddler. And again, I think from that point of view, we've much thanks to Birgit and Sondre, do you remember, in the office in Amsterdam. I think Walter, the people in Amsterdam were so helpful there. So the office then changed the whole work because we became much more European then. We could do things together. And the last one was the point you made, was that when the Central European and Eastern European countries came on board, I think again, thanks very much to Christoph and Polish. That was a major change, new ideas, new thinking, new plans, and it just made the whole organisation grow. And I think these are heroes in my time. I think there's been much more heroes, and we should acknowledge these kind of personalities who do a European task and not just a national.
You always seek for applause, and you always get it.
Not easy.
What would you say? What were the you mentioned a little bit about that, but you could maybe say a little bit more. What were the values which guided you and your basically friends and co-workers in EYCA back when you were president? Values. What were the values of EYCA?
Oh, the values.
Yes.
No, I think back then and still today, I think the values of willing to share and willing to cooperate and to be transparent with the work you're doing. I was very, very pleased to see the developments in the website, particularly that section under the association side, where people are genuinely willing to share good practice, sharing working templates. Sometimes it seems very, very straightforward, but sharing good photographs, good graphic images, and so on and so forth. Because sometimes new cards, sometimes well-established cards, struggle to get some of the basics right, because they either don't have the resources or the time or the skill sets to develop that type of work. So that's wonderful, because I remember back in the good old days, I'm sorry to harp on, but that's the way it is. I employed a young lady. She came into my office, and I was very proud of my filing cabinet. I had a filing cabinet this high, very well organised, but all that was inside the filing cabinet were black and white photographs of wonderful youth work events, and it was all organised: volunteering, youth organisations, environmental work, and so on and so forth. It was my youth information filing cabinet, but it was made up of black and white photographs and what do you call those wee slides?
Before my time.
No, you dropped them into projectors and they went round on carousels. All the young people are looking at me going, what's he talking about?
Slides.
There were slides, you put them into carousels, you pressed a button and it went round and round and you could make movies.
Technology.
Anyway, this young lady came into my office and asked to borrow some photographs of young people doing environmental work and volunteering work and so on and so forth. And I had the best filing cabinet in Scotland. Her name happened to be Louise MacDonald, and a year later I employed her to run a young volunteering project in Scotland, and I've managed to keep in touch with Louise ever since. But that's what I think was most important and remains the most important thing in the association, the willingness to share, to go to other people's countries and explore their filing cabinets, to be able to sit round in the bar and have a coffee with another individual and ask them for help and support and information. The friendships are absolutely important, so I think that value of sharing, cooperation is probably what's made EYCA the great success it is.
Thank you for mentioning that. I think that's really, really important thing, and I think that's really something which I need to mention once more, even we were mentioning many times, that there is a program which we created in the framework of maximizing impact, which is actually enabling the members to go to another member and learn a little bit from them. So that is something which we had in the past, that due to, as you mentioned, financial difficulties, it was difficult to organize, but it's back, and I urge you all to explore these possibilities. The open calls which office is launching, there will be another open call in the second part of the year for study visits and for exchange visits. That is something which is really, really valuable inside the data. This sharing is something which we really appreciate and nurture inside. But also when you mentioned that you had a lot of things, a lot of photos, a lot of files and volunteering on different events, I think somehow in this conference we have young people here with us. This is it's not first time that we have young people, but still it's first time that somehow it's planned, organized, and that we have aimed to work together with them in developing what the data future. But Owen, could you tell us a little bit more how young people were involved in the previous years? So what was the role of young people? What we did to include them more?
I just want to start with one minor remark to the development during the last years. I think it was mentioned already. Marcus mentioned the first office we had in Amsterdam. And during my period, we moved quite fast the office from one point to the other one. I mean, 8 years is a long time, but we moved the office from Amsterdam to Budapest, from Budapest to Bratislava, from Bratislava to Brussels. We never took another country, just always a country for B. So the next country might be Bilbao or something like that. So no other choice. Yeah? It always has to be a country with capital letter B at the beginning.
Belgrade.
Belgrade.
Would be a very good choice, I have to say. Great conference. And I mean, I think what is really one of the success of our organization is that we developed an excellent office during the last years. So I'm really impressed what I got during the last years. The development of the office in Brussels, it's excellent. So
Let's
that's
have
excellent
one
work.
applause for the
That's
office.
excellent work. Excellent work Manuel and his team is doing, but I also want to mention the so to say the two others who were working before Manuel. So it's Marcel Hackmann. I'm still in good contact with him. He's now living back. He's being back again in Switzerland and working there for Amnesty International. He's doing a great job for Amnesty International, getting a lot of money for Amnesty International, which is very important for the development of our society. And Emre van der Schaaf, who was the first director, so to say, starting in Amsterdam, making a tour through Europe, and finally ended up in Budapest. Bob Forsyth, sorry to get so hitting, and started at the end of my time. So that's I think he was working so hard, and yeah, he's no more with us, but I think he's somewhere around in this room. I think he's happy that we are here together with Belgrade. And the conferences. I think all these conferences we had during these years, these wonderful occasions in so many cities in Europe, getting to all these places, that was also a wonderful thing. But now coming back to your question, how to involve young people? I just want to tell a short story about what we did at the beginning of our time in Austria. It was the program we had at the time was Europe for a Change, and that was exactly the time when the Eastern European country joined the European Union. And what did we do at the time? So these were 10 countries at the same time joining the European Union. And Europe for a Change was a special thing, asking young people in the Eastern European countries, young European card holders, youth card holders, about their vision for Europe. And I remember the videos we made at the time, we produced at the time, visions about saying, yeah, we want a united Europe, we want to be in a Europe where we can travel everywhere we want, we can work everywhere we want, we can, with a common currency, we want to be together, we want to be friendly amongst ourselves and so on. So this involvement of young people, we had a big conference in several places with 100, 150 young people. There was such a strength coming out from this moment of this young people. You were there. I think, and so I'm really pleased that you have integrated young people here in Belgrade. I think that's so important to have young people with us, with the association, doing things. The reward system in Scotland, now also done in the Netherlands. Other countries are looking up in how to involve young people, getting them into society, helping them to show their willingness to contribute also to society. I think that's really important. So the youth card, the development of the youth card for sure is a development in more involvement in our society. It's not just a card anymore for sure, we all know that it's not just a discount, it's really being there and being part of Europe.
Thank you very much. I think you are very, very right. It's not only the card anymore, it's much more than that, and we are all working very hard together to be much more than that. I just wanted to ask you, because when you were mentioning those young people, I remember that I started, for example, with EYCA Venture when I was 23, 24. So back then I was still very young card holder in terms of possibilities. But I would just like to ask you, who started as a card holder this old venture with EYCA here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. So we managed to keep some people with us, which I think brings additional value to EYCA as an association, and I think that's really important. I mean, I'm still here, many of you are still here, we will be there as much as we can serve to EYCA, but I think this is really, really good that we have people who are staying with us, and we have new people who are coming to us. And in that terms, I would like to ask, let's say, Jakob this time, you were almost 30 years with EYCA, but what would you say, what would be your vision in next 30 years? Where EYCA should come in the next 30 years?
Ooh, what a question. Well,
No pressure.
no pressure.
I didn't tell them, I didn't want them to prepare.
No, but well, one direction that I have already seen for some years is that we should be more part of the youth policy. I mean, we have done this throughout all the 30 years, but it has become more and more important part of our work. In the old days, I remember we used to measure the success of a member organization was how many cards you have, how many discounts you have. But we have already stopped this a long time ago, and now we are also, I mean, of course, these services that we have for the card holders are very important. I don't want to undermine them. But at the same time, we have started to estimate the success of a card organization is that how involved you are in the field of youth policy. And I've always said that EYCA is not a youth organization because we are not a youth-led organization. But we have a very important role to play in this youth policy field because we can be in contact with large numbers of young people. And especially I would like to see us go more and more in the direction that we don't only get in contact and have as card holders the ones who are doing well anyway. I mean, it's very easy to get the university students and people who are doing well in their life, but it's very difficult to reach the the disadvantaged groups, so the ethnic minorities, the disabled young persons, and many other groups that are maybe not in such a good position in our society. So I think this is a challenge that we should face, and I know that there are very good examples in many of our member countries on doing this work, but we should reach out more to those young people who are not doing well. And yeah, so this is to be part of the youth policy and to reach out for all young people instead of the traditional ones that we have often done.
Well, I would like to mention that the also additional aspect which EYCA is different from other organizations is that we are reaching non-organized young people. That's also something which is our aim. So we are not working with those who are working in youth organizations which are active by themselves in some way, but we are trying really to reach those who are not active. And that's something which was always a part of EYCA's mission. And I think it's really important to keep it in mind for the future for key years. Marcus, what would you say? What would be your vision of EYCA?
I would say, like any youth work, I would gallop off in all directions. Don't be confined in what's going to take place. It's how you work together, and we shouldn't make sure it's all the same. The great advantage of EYCA is it's full of a family of different cultures and different approaches. And from my point of view, we've hardly touched the development side, but you must maintain the way you work together. The point made here before is you must be friends. You can pick up the phone anytime and look for help and give advice and support each other. Don't squabble about minor things. Go for the vision. Make sure you do things because that's the job you're here for. And thirdly, respect and enjoy the different cultures. This is not the United States of America, this is Europe. And it's important that, so I would confine you at my age. Do what you want, but do it fast.
Marcus won't like this.
Well, don't do it.
Because well, I have to do it, Marcus. Because I mean, it is terrific that we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the European Youth Card Association here in Belgrade. I also celebrated another significant anniversary a couple of weeks ago. This was a 50th anniversary, and this is the 50th anniversary of my football team. I don't own them, but my football team, Glasgow Celtic, winning the European Cup in Lisbon in 1967.
Can you remember that?
Applause.
It's never happened since.
My point being, though, in those days, Glasgow Celtic were the greatest football club in Europe. But the face of football and UEFA and those people who run football has changed. There are now extremely wealthy clubs who are far better resourced than most other clubs in Europe. I was talking to Jarko about this yesterday. We could probably name now the 5 clubs in Europe that will win the Champions League.
Glasgow Rangers.
I'm delighted to see that we have work done on the White Territories. But remember, these were cards that were very strong, very powerful, and very important to the association during the period where they were previously alive and well. I spent 6 months in England at the National Youth Agency trying to revigorate the youth card there, but we faced a big stumbling block when the government itself launched its own youth discount card called Connections, and it was very difficult to break down that barrier. So I go back to my point, is that we could all become tomorrow a white territory if we don't look after each other. So look after your neighbours, look after the other cards within the association, because we might all find difficult times. Glasgow Celtic are no longer going to win the European Cup and be at the top of European football, and we need to make sure we look after our card members in the same way. I think the office in the last few years has done a fantastic job. The association is strong, but let's not rest on our laurels and think that it can never change. in the same way that it's changed for European football, sadly.
Be prepared, you never know what is waiting behind the corner, yes. Wolfgang, what would you say? What would you
I would like to be short and brief at the end because a lot of things are already mentioned. I would say this strength of the organization, Janko was looking at the point saying we should be more integrated in youth policy, in European policy as such, as an organization. And I just want to say is, if young people a voice, so I think this organization, the youth organization, it's not a normal youth organization, but having a special product for young people. So I think there is really a need in this Europe that young people have a voice, that they are heard in Europe. And all young people, those with migration background, there are so many immigrants now living in Europe, coming from other cultures, other countries. We have to integrate them. We have to use their power. We have to use their strength. They are there, they are living with us, they will stay. We can't kick them out anymore. They are a part of Europe. And all the other young people living in Europe, I think, to help them to use their power, and the organization give these young people a voice, that the young people are heard and that they can develop Europe further, because the elderly people won't do it, for sure not.
Yep.
Give young people a voice. That's for me the thing for the organization.
Thank you very much, Wolfgang, and thank you very much all. I think what you say we are really now doing with these young people here, and we will hear two very inspirational speeches very soon from two young persons, where one is definitely immigration background, but I'm really happy that we managed to get him here. But before that, I would like to open the floor to possible questions from the audience. I think this was a little tour through the history of EYCA, the challenges and all the hopes and inspirations which were there during these 30 years. Do you have any questions for Mr. President here?
Don't be brave.
Good.
Time's up.
Well, if not,
We're out of here.
Manel?
No, I don't have any questions. Somebody has a question?
No, it's all clear. It's all clear.
They were all loud and clear. Okay, thank you very much once more.
Yeah, you'll find us in the back. We'll be in the back.